Well, welcome. Probably you recognize it. I think it's 8 years back when we were all working in the office, still every day. We were sitting in the office with the team, and then someone knocked at our door. Guys, do you have a problem? Yeah. At that moment, we were running quite a number of services for hosting open data, which were used throughout the Netherlands. Also by teams in the same building, and they came to us. Do you have problems? And to me, that felt pretty embarrassing that they had to tell me that there were problems with our services. Why didn't we see that ourselves? And actually, we had to ask them, but what kind of problems do you face? And we'll have a look in some logging, and probably we can find problems. But in the end, it's your code running on production. And you have all kind of nice feedback loops and all kind of cycles, continuous integration, continuous delivery, or you name it. But in the end, what matters is your code is running on production. And in the end, also, you have to know what is actually your code doing in production and how should you optimize it. Because if you don't know, who else will fix it? About me, I'm Kees Bos. I'm a software developer, also observability engineer. I've worked also as DevOps and as re-engineer. But I've always been interested in how is my code running on production, and also what kind of insights can I get out of it also to optimize my code. And I also like to visualize it. I work a lot also with the Grafana tooling. I'm also a Grafana champion. But this is actually one of the things I've been always doing. And I hope to tell you also how you can use this as well. Another project I was working on, then they asked me, okay, Kees, can you have a look? We have 17 containers running on one machine. It had a lot of memory. All the services were microservices. The containers, the images were created by an external company, but it was a joint venture. We also could have a look at the code, but they were responsible for creating the code. We were running it on the machine, and then someone asked me, okay, but can you have a look because we have some problems. It's not stable, we have a lot of issues. And one of the things what we noticed is that, servers were actually not doing that much. Memory was growing, and if you have all these containers running, and all of a sudden, if there's not enough memory, then the out-memory killer from Linux is coming, and then gone is your container. We have to fix something, and they even did not configure the auto restart of the container, so it was gone. But in the end, it's the question, okay, but how effectively can you observe what's going on in your container with your software? And especially, what can you do with the data generated, and without making changes to the code, can you see what's actually going on in your container and with your software? And luckily, we now have OpenTelemetry. With OpenTelemetry, we can get more insights. But your code or your container is not just a transparent box. A lot of things are going on. And how can you get more insights in it? What's OpenTelemetry? OpenTelemetry is a set of, whatnot, but it's a set of libraries, SDKs, for all kind of programming languages. It has APIs, so with SDKs it's a lot of implementation also, but also just APIs which you can use. It's also a protocol, so the protocol being used to send over telemetry data. It has also a lot of conventions, so how do you name the things? And it also has tooling for gathering all the data and sending that to backends to store the data. And it started with traces, OpenTelemetry, but also metrics and logging are added to it. And also this year, also profiles have been added to the specifications of OpenTelemetry, and they're working on it also to get more implementations for it. Yeah, I would say also, if you're interested, also have a look at OpenTelemetry.io. There's a lot of documentation, and it's also a really good documentation. But I will tell you more about it. One of the things of OpenTelemetry is, on one hand, you have the code for instrumentation, and you have also the auto-instrumentation code, but also the APIs and the SDKs for all kind of languages, what I said. And you can instrument your code, your microservices, but not limited to microservices. Any application you can use it. But also it's also supported by a lot of other tooling, and you see it more and more coming. Also Kubernetes, but also all kind of other infra-related software is also supporting it. Also database level, also more and more it's being supported. And in the end, most of the times you collect all the data in an OpenTelemetry collector, and you collect the data there. There you can do all kind of processing, and then send it to your storage. And that can be your time series databases, for example, for metrics, your log storage, or your traces, or columnar storage, and you can even send it to multiple storages at the same time. And also that can be on-premise or cloud services, or you name it. And this is also OpenTelemetry is part of CNCF, the Cloud Native Foundation, and it's also Kubernetes is the most active project, and OpenTelemetry is the most active project after Kubernetes, and it has a lot of contributors of all the big companies also in the area, where they're all working together on these standards. What I use locally is a setup. I've been part of quite a number of investigations where I had to analyze production incidents. Also, based on some data, I did a lot of things locally, and then some asked, okay, but can you share the tools you use locally as well? At that moment, I just sent them a zip with some configuration files, but then I thought, okay, but let's make it open source, so you can find it on GitHub. But it contains Grafana visualization. It connects to the several storages for the lost traces, metrics, and also profiles, and also with OpenTelemetry collector. It's opening the port. Data can be sent to it, and that's the data is being stored. And that's what I will use also in this demo. In the demo I will show you later. Back to the problems. Now we had the container running, but how do we get insights? So the problem with the containers, that was about 3 years back. And I thought they created the containers. We could not change the containers, so we could have get metrics out of it if they were using, for example, Spring Actuator to provide some metrics, but they didn't want to, and they didn't use to do that. Also, they were running the containers themselves, and they said, but we don't need that. I don't know why not. They didn't want to. So then I thought, okay, but we can do it also with OpenTelemetry. With auto instrumentation, and auto instrumentation is using the agent technology of the JVM. So you can put in an agent, and that is hooking into the bytecode level of your JVM, and you can just with the command with the -Java agent parameter, you can specify which agent you want to load next to your application which you want to execute. But then you still need to change your startup path. But you can also do it in a different way. You can also specify the Java tools option, and specify there you want to run an agent, and that environment variable is also picked up by JVM during start. So you can add that agent to your image, but then you have to create a new image. So you can do a from, and then add the jar, and then add the environment variable. Or you can add it through volume, a host volume, or a different way as volume. In Kubernetes, you can do a number of things also with config map and then feed in the jar or with a sidecar. And nowadays also OpenTelemetry has the operator, which also supports auto instrumentation. And then you can even, with some configuration, specify which services you want to instrument, even so auto instrument with Java, the OpenTelemetry Java agent.
Okay, so does the operator then, I don't know, inject an agent inside a running container?
Yeah. What they do is they start a sidecar, and they also in your configuration they add a volume, and then they with the sidecar they copy the jar to the volume, and also that volume is mounted to your container, and then they add also environment variables.
Interesting.
And then it's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Also scary.
Yeah. No, I was also thinking, okay, how did they do? Okay, I will give a demo for two problems. So we still had the memory problem, so the growing containers. Why was it? First suspicion is, did they introduce a memory issue? And the other one is errors, because also a number of errors occurred. But yeah, do we have the right context for that? I recreated that setup with just two containers, alpha and beta. It's actually running the same code, but running it twice because it's possible. And I'll show you more of it. This is just the code. The container, it has an endpoint, random. It gets an ID. As well, you see some logging, but this is just Spring Boot, so no dependencies on OpenTelemetry or whatever. Just some logging. If it can't handle it, it's throwing an exception, and in the end it returns a string. How does the Docker file look like? It's just Java 21, and taking the jar, running it as non-root, and here you see it's just running Java minus jar. How does the Docker compose look like? Here we have the definition for the service. It's building the service with the Docker file. It's feeding it with some environment variables to tell OpenTelemetry this is the beta service, to tell Spring it's the beta service, and also for the dependency from beta to alpha. Alpha serves the same, and you see here twice, otherwise you have to repeat a bit. You can use this fragment as well to tell we also want to have some properties defined in the OpenTelemetry properties file, and here you see the volume where the agent jar is mounted. And with the OpenTelemetry properties, here you see again the jar file to tell it can use the OpenTelemetry line protocol. Here is the endpoint where it sends the data to and some timeouts values. And I also specified that it will not only just retrieve the standard JVM metrics, but also some Tomcat related metrics, which are retrieved from JMix. This is running. So let's do this one, just yes. So two containers are running, alpha and beta, and they are running already for an hour. So let's see what we have there. So what I created, so the containers are started, and it's sending the data to the OpenTelemetry collector, and out of that you can directly see this is the beta service. There are a number of running threads, so I created the dashboard to visualize the metrics. There are a number of threads running, the heap usage, garbage collection, I did not include the class count, etc., but you can also see the loaded classes, etc. And also what I mentioned, you have the Tomcat information, so you can see the number of Tomcat threads and active sessions. That's what you get out of the box just by including the agent, the OpenTelemetry agent jar. And you also get the logging. Now I have to select a bit more, otherwise you don't see the logging. So here you see also the logging for the startup. So we didn't do anything with logging, but it just collects the logging automatically. And what you so then there was the question, okay, but what happens with memory? So, but now we can see what is the memory actually doing. And here you see the scale, but what you don't see, I disabled also the max heap. The max heap, if you have a machine with enough memory, what is Java doing if you don't specify anything? It just assumes I can use everything. So if you have 17 containers running on the machine, each container thinks, I have enough memory. So just create a heap. And why would so there is no need for the garbage collector to be active. And then you see at some moment garbage collection gets a bit active and growing. And if you then just send a number of requests where it has to do some parsing, and then it will grow your heap. And why would you do anything? So in fact, there was no memory issue at all, but there was a configuration issue. Because if you have a look and what I did here in the Docker Compose file, if you just specify you have a limit, switch to alpha, and here you have your heap. Yeah, it's not 8 gigabyte, but it's way lower. And here you see also the garbage collector is more active because it tries to fit in the smaller heap size you have. It still can grow to the max heap, but there is no need for it. But the garbage collector is just a bit more active. So, but with this, we got the insight, and then we were able to fix it with the configuration. Let me start. Oh, and then I have to type it to the right place. Just case 6 scenario 2. This is a case 6 load test scenario where it is sending a request with 20 users at the same time. It's sending a request to the random endpoint with a random number as input. And now we see, let's take the last 5 minutes. Now we see also the number of threads increasing because load is coming in. We see heap a bit growing. We see Tomcat getting more load. And I didn't do anything, but here we have now also the information about the request coming in. So we didn't create any metrics or things like that, but that is part of the auto instrumentation. It knows, okay, but you're running on Spring, so then I know I can instrument these classes, and you can get more metrics out of it. So you see the number of requests coming in. Also, it's measuring duration, and it's also measuring errors. So apparently, the random endpoint is not that stable. But this is on service level, but what you can also see, so it also has the information about which endpoint is being invoked. So here you see also the random endpoint. So it will also split out that information on the endpoint you have. Okay, so based on the metrics, we can see we have some problems. So what kind of problems do we have? So then you can check your logging. We see some random behavior. We see also exceptions. And that's what we faced in the project as well. That project was a stateless microservice. It got some requests with data, and it has to do financial calculations. And based on that, it sometimes got null pointer exceptions. And then we could raise a ticket to them and say, guys, there is a null pointer exception at this line. And then, okay. But what is the context of it? So what kind of data I sent with? That's a good one. Here in the log line, you don't see anything, and also if you do Docker logs, you get the default logging of Spring, but there's no context of it. What is the request you were sending? And I will open up this one. So what you can see, I can do that here. That's a bit easier than we can do. So this is the Explore from the logs from Grafana. What you can see here, it's generating the log files, the log lines, and you can see the even already info and error. There are a lot of error log lines. Here you see the error. You see the stack trace. We can have a look at this code, but we saw in the code the exception as well. But what is the context of the request? Because some of the requests are successful and the others are failing. So there's the stack trace, but there's more information. So and that's what OpenTelemetry is adding as well. So it's also adding the context of which service is logging this information. Also, it's even providing the information about the startup path and the JDK which is used, of the JVM version which is used to run the whole setup. And you see this one is for alpha, and there's also a trace ID. So it's even already, I didn't do anything, but it's already giving each request a trace ID and also the trace context. So based on that, we can ask, okay, but what is then the request being used? There should be a close button somewhere. Close. So here you see more information about the trace. Yeah, there is just the request, so you just see what's coming in on the server. So but also here you see the split out for the resources. So what is actually which resource, which service is producing this trace, this span actually, and there is more span information. So specific to this request, and you can see it's on the random endpoint. You can see from which client is it coming, and you can see also the full path. So you can see more on the context. And one of the other things what you can do is, based on the trace, you can say, what kind of logging do you have for this trace? So I'll close this one, and then you'll see, so the trace ID is also available for each log line. So you can get which are the log lines for this specific request. And we asked also, okay, but can we do request logging so that also the payload of the request can be logged? And then you can see, but we have a null pointer, but it's because of this payload, and there were specific situations where they faced problems. And with the context, it was easy for them to fix. Also to see, okay, but in which context is this now failing? Going back, so with OpenTelemetry we get more metrics out of the box, and also we get the errors of the tracing and the logging, and also with that we can now also have the correlation and get more information out of it. Another problem, we had the information about the request, and then at some point in time I saw I was looking at the dashboard, and then I saw this on one of the services. It was a microservice which was connecting to dReport, where that's for connection to, for example, the Dutch tax authorities, but also the Chamber of Commerce. You can connect to dReport and get access and send requests to that. And then what I saw is, okay, but we are sending sometimes to this microservices, we are sending a lot of requests, but also the response time is not as I expected. So as long as there is not that much of requests, then also the responses are fine. But if we are sending more requests, then also the response times goes up. Can be the case that the report is having problems with our load. That's not what I think. If we just send some more requests, that they have more problems. So would it be their side, or is it our side which is having problems? I reproduce that same also in this setup. I'm starting the test in the meantime. What I have here is this is the chain request handler. Request is coming in on the chain, and based on that, HTTP request is being built up, and it's sending out the request to the other service. So that's where beta is connecting to alpha. And if it's okay, it's just returning the response body, and otherwise it's reporting an error. Back to the dashboard. Now you see the previous test was done. Next test is starting here. And what you see here, so in the test, it's first sending a few requests with one user at a time, and then after that it will ramp up and will send it with 20 users as well. And what you can see already, so this is the incoming request on alpha. And alpha is giving, what you can see here, it's just returning the same duration as before. So also even with the errors. So it looks like alpha is not a problem, and that was also okay. But if is DigiPort the problem, or was our own service the problem? So in this case, it looks like that alpha is fine. Here you see beta. These were the response times before, and now you see the response times even up to 10 seconds, while it's just invoking the same random endpoint at the other side. So what is then actually the problem? And it's even reporting no errors. And that is also with OpenTelemetry, you not only have the traces for the incoming request, but you also have the metrics automatically for the outgoing request. And here you see for the outgoing request, here we see just the normal response times. So that's where, okay, but we see actually from the client normal response times, but our service is giving high response times. So it is in our service. And if you then have a look, then you see, okay, we have here the number of threads, but also the block threads are going up. That's not what you expect. And if you then have a look at the traces, and let me go. So this is also a different way to have a look at the traces. So this is a new feature of Grafana Tempo, which is released last month. So that didn't exist 3 years back, but it helps as well also to find out. So here you can have a look at the traces in the. Let's take the last 5 minutes. It should load here the traces. Traces. It shows 200, but it doesn't show. No. Let's go. Take traces for service. Name is beta. So what timestamp did I take? Last 5 minutes. So these are quite fast. So here's a slower one. And what you can see here as well, so I will close this one. Close here. What you see here as well, so you can see it from the metrics, but also from this trace. Here you see trace coming in. So this is the server part. So beta is receiving the request, and here you see also the kind server. You have here a child span, which is called kind client. So that's the outgoing part. And then you see here also alpha is getting the request and handles it. And this is kind server. So this is the alpha side. So you see them both in one view. But what you also can see here is that beta is getting the request, but there is actually quite a long time happening nothing. And after a while, it's sending the request to alpha. So it looks like there is a problem in the code in beta. So let's go back to the code.
Okay, one question about the traces, right? I saw that you have basically one trace over different services.
Yep.
You get it out of the box just by that jar? Or
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
Really? Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
The jar is put in both services. Both are producing the spans, and as header, HTTP header, the trace ID is being sent, and that's part of the specifications of OpenTelemetry.
Okay.
Actually, the trace header is part of the W3C standards to transfer the trace information as header.
And that's for HTTP requests. Does it also do like other, I don't know, Kafka and all that stuff? Does it also do that? Or?
Comes later.
Okay, I'll wait, thanks.
So we'll go to the code, and let's see if you can spot the problem. Yep, synchronized. Because then requests are coming in and they're blocked on the synchronized block before sending the request. So what they used, they used JKS for certificates because it's mutual TLS to DigiPort, but they were juggling around with that and then faced some problems. So then they decided, okay, but let's make it synchronized, then we don't have the problems. But then you end up with different problems. But that's also, and that's why it's important also the relation between your code and production, and also the feedback loop, because you know what's happening in your code and also how to optimize it. But if you don't get the feedback of what your code is actually doing in production, how would you then do the optimizations? Going to the slides. Another problem I solved is I've created a Quarkus application. Also I'm a volunteer also in the church, and I created a portal application for all other volunteers as well, also to be able to access the SharePoint sites where documents were stored, so everyone is having access to the right SharePoint they should have access to. But requests were done to Microsoft with the Graph API, but there was no information about what was actually happening. Quarkus, I used Quarkus with native application, but with native you can't inject with OpenTelemetry Java agent. But Quarkus has support for OpenTelemetry built in, but but then you end up that for the things Quarkus is supporting, most of it is supported. But in this case, the MS Graph SDK Java library was using OK HTTP client, which was not part of the things supported for Quarkus for OpenTelemetry. So the calls done to Microsoft were not visible yet. But this is how the portal looks like, and there you see at the bottom the list of the SharePoint sites where you could have access to. But this is the trace graph of just a request to that API. Give me the list of the SharePoint sites where I have access to. And it's just one bar with one span. It's a server span. The portal got the request, and then after a while it gave the response. But actually I would like to know what was actually happening. But OpenTelemetry also has API. So if there is OpenTelemetry support in your application, and that can also be if you have injected the OpenTelemetry agent, if you then just add a dependency on the API, which is a very small library, you can just use some of the things like the with span annotation. You can just put it in an annotation on your method, and it will create a new span with just that name. So I added that on one of the methods, and then I had a new trace. You see the request coming in, server request, and here you have the retrieve SharePoint sites span, and by default it gets the kind internal. So you have multiple kinds of spans. You have the server span, you have the client span, and you have also the internal span, and which you can do. So if you have methods which are doing a lot of calculations in your modules, then you can also put the internal span on it. Then you can at least see where is time spent also in, and also if from that module or whatever, and if it's then doing also requests to with the client also to other places, then you can see also the details. So we have the internal span, but then they are kind of the same length, so it doesn't help, or at least it doesn't help that much in this case. But there are more things you can do with the API. You can retrieve in your code the current span. So in your code at the backend, if in the background a span is created, you can request that span, and then you can put additional information on that span. So you can add attributes to it, and you can also add span events to it. A span event is at the moment you add information to that span, it's also recording the time of that moment. And so you can add all kind of things, like in this case just the number of SharePoint sites retrieved, but you can also for example, in the banking situation, you could add, is this because of client customers, private customers, or banking corporate customers, or you can do all kind of information you can add to your traces, and then later on search on it. Because if you face issues, then you have more information in what is the context of this exception or this the things which are happening. So what I added, so the span events, and here you see already the times, and you see the times are going up, and you also here, but it's a bit hard probably to read, but here you can also read the custom attribute I added, so 15 SharePoint signs being read. But then I thought, I think also the OKHTTP client, I can do probably things with that, because OpenTelemetry has a library which can do the instrumentation of the OKHTTP client, and also they provided some code samples on how to use it. The MS Graph SDK Java library did not support it, but in the end, just playing around with it, making some changes, locally testing, it worked. Then it created a pull request, and then it's fixed. So then we can make the next step. Then you can see all the requests, and then at the moment I saw this, and I thought, this is not a good idea. And actually I knew, because I knew already from the information, it was retrieving 15 SharePoint sites. But if you then are confronted with the visualization of it, then you think, this is not a good idea. And then you can think, but it's because the first request is, okay, give me the list of groups I'm part of, and then for each group it's doing a goal. So then you can think, okay, but we can make that these goals in parallel or do other things. But then I thought, but I can do caching as well, because it's just an ID, a unique ID, which is being fetched each time. So then you can add caching, and then at the left side you see the old situation, and at the right side with caching. That's looking way better. But by making it visual and getting more information, you also know what to optimize. But what if you not have one service but all kind of connected services? Then you probably also get connected problems, and especially if you're a microservice landscape, then the number of services can grow pretty quickly. What to do with that? And luckily, OpenTelemetry, what I mentioned before, is it's supporting Java, but a lot of other programming languages as well. And they created a demo setup where they implemented a microservice landscape for a web service, for a web shop, where they implemented each of the services, each of the components which you probably would implement with Spring Modulate in just one single service, but because it's possible, they created it with all kind of microservices, with all kind of languages, to showcase what you can do with OpenTelemetry. And for one of the things is also Kafka is there as well. gRPC also so it's not limited to HTTP, but also but that's not in this example. But also your calls to the database. So JDBC, for example, but all deviations based on that, you can see that as well. So each call to the database can be, you can see that as a span as well, and also which kind, what query to your database is done, for example. But they created the demo setup. I'll show you a bit about that as well. So here you have the demo setup, and you can go shopping, and then you can see all kind of things. But I will show you what it looks like if you visualize that. So based on this, I hope you can. Can I remove? No, that's a bit bigger. No. I created a plugin for Grafana. Unfortunately, that's not open source. But with this, you can see, so each of the services are creating spans. And also based on the spans, OpenTelemetry Collector or Tempo can create service graph metrics and span metrics. And based on that, you can make visualizations where you can see which of the services are connecting to the other service. And also, in this case, also make it visual where problems are. And that will help you also to identify where you have problems, or where, if services have problems, where do I need to look for? Because you can have a look at front end, for example. Give me the details of front end, and here you see also a bit of the metrics. It's creating you the number of requests being sent, and also the number of errors. And I will show you here. Here you see the upstream and downstream services as well, with more information. And based on this, you can see, but also from just a service perspective, this is one of the services having problems. So you, in this case, at first you might think, okay, but the problem is with front end, but based on this, then probably have a look at what's happening with the checkout service. So that also it will give you more insights at service level, but also in the landscape of the services. And then if you have a service, why is it not working? If you then go into the details of a service, then you can also open up the traces and see where are the problems. Have a look at the traces, and you can see what's actually going on with the trace like this, and then dive into it. And based on the request, see what is the context, etc. So OpenTelemetry can give you all kind of insights on service level, but also on a broader perspective. The service graph I just showed. So in the end, what is observability? That's what we started with. It's can you get more insights of your service with the data it's producing? And if you can enrich the data, you can see a lot more what's actually going on. And we've seen OpenTelemetry, also the different signals. We did not touch the profiles. But there's also a lot to do with you can do with that, but especially also the correlation. So if you can go from traces to loss, or from loss to traces, or to metrics, or metrics created based on traces, or also You can do all kind of things with your logging. So how often does this line occur, or we have errors like this. How often does this occur, or you can get all kind of information out of it. And my advice would be standardize at least your data ingestion. So the instrumentation part and the collect where you collect the data, and then you can send out to any your data to any vendor. But at least make sure that you standardize your instrumentation, because then also you have the common names, and that's what you saw as well also with the OpenTelemetry demo setup. All kind of languages, but if you standardize it on OpenTelemetry, then everything has the same name, and then you can generate a lot of data out of it. Because if you would have had custom libraries or vendor-specific libraries for all of the languages, then it's the question if you have the same names, and if you can then generate the same information out of it. So next time they will knock on your door, but probably we're not in the office that often, but still, if they are knocking on your door, are you prepared for the questions which will come? How observable is your code? And they either hate you or they'll love you. One other thing, and this was one of the things I thought of last weekend. I don't know who of you knows Killer Coda? Yeah. Yeah, this afternoon I showed to Bert-Jan. Killer Coda, there you can, it's an environment where you can have kind of playgrounds. And hopefully it works. So there are a lot of playgrounds which I created, but I also want, based on the demo I just gave, I will try also to create a playground with that. But I created a small one yesterday. So what you can do, based on the GitHub repo, get some information. Based on this, you can fire up just an environment, and it's in this case an Ubuntu environment with Docker, so you can do all kind of things for that. With that, in this script, it's doing some installation based on the script. You get 60 minutes to play with it, and then your environment's gone. And you can create an account and then pay for it, and then you can have up to 4 hours to play around, and then your environment is gone. But you can just do start, and then that's the easy thing, is just clicking, or you can type it yourself, but if you can click. So the what I mentioned, the OpenTelemetry setup is on GitHub, and also the demo I showed with the alpha and beta service is also on GitHub. You can try it yourself as well, do the checkout and run the stuff on your machine. But in this case, you don't have to download it to your machine, but can just play around with it. So I'm planning also to make the alpha and beta setup available as well, so that you can play around. And if it's available, then we can just open up a Grafana environment. So one of the things I did, I created part of the Open Observability Toolkit is also I created the setup with Grafana and Tempo and Loki, etc. But also I configured the correlation. So if you have logs that you can, and there is a trace ID, that you can also directly go from the trace ID to the trace as well. And then you can open up just by clicking, and then Grafana is running. So then you can play around. And then plan is to have then the next steps, that you can also start up the alpha and beta service and just play around. That's it. Any questions?
The trace ID automatically included in the log lines?
Yeah, with OpenTelemetry it's automatically added to the log lines, because it also adds a log listener, and it also knows about several log libraries. So then it hooks into the library, read. So at the moment a log line is created, it knows in which context that log line is created, and then it adds also the trace context to that log line.
So it has the availability of the program.
Same as the span context. So so the log line is created in the context of a span which is being of your code at that moment, which is executed.
Yeah, you've shown us how to install the agents, which seemed okay. But the OpenTelemetry collector, how much work is that to get up and running, and how much of what you've shown us do you get out of the box?
The collector, that's also a Docker container with some configuration. Yeah, you can configure a lot of on it. There are quite good examples on that. What I get the observability toolkit. So also here in the configuration, OpenTelemetry collector. Here is just the configuration of the collector, and in the end, this is the part where everything comes together. It says listen. So for traces, listen on the OTLP receiver, do some things and send it out, and same also for the other things. So. And there are a lot of examples on what you can do with configuration, also with adding more information or dropping information or whatever you like to do. But it's starting a container with some configuration.
And the collector also contained Grafana?
No, the OpenTelemetry collector is what I showed in the picture. So you have all kind of services which are producing the information, and then you have the collector, so that's retrieving the information, and then it's here sending out to, for example, the metrics. It receives the metrics, and then it's pushing it to Prometheus right endpoint.
There's still something that you have to set up yourself as well.
Yeah, and that's what I did for convenience reasons, also just to put it in one setup. So you have the collector running and directly also the storages.
But so the collector is stateless then?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't contain a database or anything.
No.
So it helps with observability. Does it also help with alerting? Because basically what you want is just to receive an alert if something suddenly goes wrong, for example, percentage of error and these kind of things.
Yeah, so there are no alerts configured here, but you can use either in this case, for example, you can use the Grafana alerting, so configure alerts in Grafana and say if it exceeds some thresholds and then raise it. No.
About alerting.
No. And the other one is.
Into the collector can do alerting, I guess, right?
No, the collector itself doesn't do anything with.
Anything that can connect to the connector could provide alerts.
Yeah, but that it because alerting depends on the observability backend, so like they called it. Like Grafana or Prometheus, that Prometheus Alert Manager can raise the alerts, or Grafana can do the alerts. But if you push your data to Datadog or whatever vendor,
Grafana alert or Prometheus alert, it's not like OpenTelemetry alert that Grafana and Prometheus understand.
No, OpenTelemetry is the instrumentation of your code and producing that telemetry data. But what you do with the data, that is the next step, so to say, and that's not part of the OpenTelemetry standards.
I kind of have a question on the same topic, follow-up question maybe. If you have all the data, it would also be nice that you have something that automatically detects patterns instead of you as a human being needing to review everything. So is there like some add-ons, something extra that knows common patterns that have typical failures that cause those issues?
Yeah, and that is at least not part of OpenTelemetry, but that's what you typically see with all the vendors of the backends like Grafana, where by default you have standard you have to create the alerts etc. yourself. But with Grafana Cloud they offer also other things where they do machine learning on your data and then provide you insights based on that.
Have you seen that in action yet?
No, I've only seen demo videos of it. I didn't play with it myself yet.
Is the OpenTelemetry agent, is that like a standard implementation, or is it just a spec for the implementation?
No, it provides so OpenTelemetry provides the specifications, so the conventions for how should you name the things, etc.
Yeah.
But also the SDKs, so the libraries for it for the several languages.
So not like Kubernetes where everybody just implements their own thing.
No.
Okay, cool. And is there still a reason to use Spring actuator stuff with this, or do you just throw that away?
No, and what you can use them. So that also depends on what situation you are. So if you're already using that for the metric side, then you can just turn off the OpenTelemetry metrics, so to say. But what you see now also with Spring Boot, they also push more the data, also, and they have more integration with Micrometer. And what you see there, Micrometer can have does have OpenTelemetry as implementation, but you can also use other implementations as well. And then based on that, then you can choose whatever you like, but also OpenTelemetry part. With actuator, you saw that's more the pull mechanism, and with OpenTelemetry, you see more the push mechanism. And that's also one of the other things. So you can also in your Java agent, you can also say, but I don't want to have the push, but for metrics I want to have the pull method as well. And then you can even register an Prometheus-like endpoint with OpenTelemetry. So there are all kind of things possible, and that also depends a bit on the situation where you are.
And does the Java agent have a performance impact that's measured?
Yeah, it always has impact.
Yeah. But is it measured? Is it like are we talking like 0.1%? Like
yeah, I don't know exactly, but in the end it always has impact. But not knowing what's going on also has impact.
Yeah, of course. Like if it adds like a 10% overhead. To
no, it's
everything,
not that much.
Cool. Thanks.
And do you need both, like the collector and this agent running, or is it?
You need something in your so you rather than using the agent, you can also import libraries and then do the configuration for the what they call the tracer and the logger, etc. You can do that also in code, so then you don't need the agent, and you can push out the data in OpenTelemetry format to a collector, but tools like Datadog or also Grafana, also with Prometheus 3.0, also it supports OpenTelemetry natively. So then you can push your data right away from your application to Prometheus, for example. And that's what you see also more and more. All the vendors are supporting OpenTelemetry endpoints where you just can push your OpenTelemetry data. So you don't need a collector, but most of them all advise put a collector close to your service, push the data to that service, and then from there, so push your data to the collector, and then from the collector push it to your service where you need it, because then you can make that separation, and also if you want to do more things, you can do a number of things on the collector, and then push it to your backend, and also making changes to your. So if you move your backend or have other configurations needed, then you just update your collector rather than all your applications. And also that's what also one of the things you see now is also the mass maintenance of OpenTelemetry collectors, so that you can also have a control plane providing configuration for OpenTelemetry collectors. Also as a standard project again, that you can also do the maintenance of that. And that's the nice thing also with such a large community, that also these type of more operational problems, how do you solve that? Then you see also others coming in there as well.
For sending metrics or data aside from the ones that OpenTelemetry sends by itself, do we use some kind of library, or is OpenTelemetry by itself a library that I can use to send the topic?
Yeah, so you can also with I showed a bit on that you can enrich your span data with your span with more data, but in the same way you can also create your own metrics and provide other metrics. You can implement whatever you like also with the SDKs. For example, one of the things you see with the OpenTelemetry Java instrumentation. So what you see here as well, instrumentation. So here, this is the Java agent, and what you see here is in the agent there are all kind of libraries supported where they have auto instrumentation for all these libraries and make sure that the traces are running fine, and also metrics are produced for quite a number of these things. And this list is quite big. And one of the things, for example, which you also have to think of. So if you run your code, so in the alpha and beta examples, it's just request is coming in, it's handled on the same thread. So the context is easy. But if you in your code, if you're creating new threads, then you want to have the context of the incoming request. You want to transfer that also to your new thread, so that if you do from that new thread a request to another service, you want to have that same context. And also these type of things are also handled with the instrumentation, because they know about things like the executed threads and etc. Or anything you can do with new threads and frameworks there are. So also they make sure that the context propagation to your new execution is done.
So for the new, like the, what's it called again, the lightweight threads?
Yeah, virtual threads as well.
Virtual threads
Yeah.
works as well
Yep.
already. Nice.
How big is the agent jar?
Sorry?
How big is the agent jar? Sounds like a lot of functionality.
If you want to know, we can see. I don't know. Where is it?
You need to know about all the Java frameworks.
Yeah. Where did I store it?
You can build your own. Like, oh no, I don't need that one.
That does seem like something you should do. 22
It-
megs.
Yep.
Oh, not too bad.
Not light, but not bad.
No.
How well does it work with Kotlin and specifically coroutines?
It is also supporting Kotlin, and I think also with, I can't imagine that they didn't have a look at that.
I just saw the name in the list.
Yeah, it's definitely it is definitely in the list.
So which Kotlin part did you mention? Coroutines. Ah, okay, sorry. Yeah.
Isn't this the old version of virtual threads?
It's a better version.
So if there are
Java,
no
the old version of Kotlin then?
Yes.
Cyclic dependency.
So if there are no other questions, then we can go for the drinks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.